record. All right, so as soon as this converts at the end of today, I'll put it in the classroom like always. Okay, so I'm gonna go to my share screen. Okay, so I need to go back to our class, and those of you who are watching, you remember all of the files are under student data files. So I'm going to go to content. When I scroll down, I'm going to go to student data files. Since we're working on project 3, go to projects. And I'm there at project 3. Now you see this is 12b_start.nef. This is a file, which is called a raw file. It's like a digital negative, right? And it's proprietary, but for the most part, every camera brand has something like this. So what I'm going to do, this is under downloads. I'm going to go to Photopea, file, and I need to go to open. Click on it, boom. Well, not exactly boom, because it took a minute. But anyway, that is the file that you are working on. Okay, so this is your digital negative. And when we finish working with this particular picture, we're going to be able to save it in any kind of format we want to. So right here, I'm going to click on open, because we need this to open up into our Photopea program. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust the white balance in Photopea. Now, talked a lot about white balance, but one of the things that's great about Photopea is that you can adjust the white balance in the editing process, as opposed to being dependent on the lighting conditions that happened when the person took that picture. So this is where you can change the overall balance of the picture. In fact, your textbook says an image's white balance reflects the color conditions under which it was captured. Digital camera records the white balance at the time of exposure. So let's jump into the first step. So now we have opened up Photopea, and we have the original image of the bride, and it has a slight color cast and low exposure. So this is not the best picture right now. It's kind of dark in terms of the lighting, could be a lot brighter. And we don't know, it almost looks like it has like a yellowish cast. We need to get rid of that. That is not attractive. So this is why some pictures look good, some pictures look bad, because people don't know. So your textbook and your assignment has us changing the parameters of this Photopea project. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to change the settings for our raw Photopea, do our raw Photopea settings. Okay, so actually, let me take a step back. Give me 1 second. I'm just going to make 1 or 2 little changes. And yes, I know we're getting close to break, but I'm going to make a change here. So one of the things that we're going to do, let's see, I want to do 2 things as I'm working on this. Let me just restart here for a sec. So I'm going to go file and open. I needed to check to make sure I had changed the temperature and I hadn't. Okay, so basically you're gonna go file and open and you get the channel and colors, right? Now under your textbook, you're asked to change the temperature to 3210 here, so 3210. And the tint, they want you to change to -15 instead of -23. So I'm gonna say 1.5. And the exposure, I think we're at 1.2. Okay, and contrast, we're gonna say 100. So already we're getting some changes there. And it's a little bit brighter, okay? Now, we're gonna go ahead and click open. There we go. Now we need to adjust the levels. Now you might say, well, excuse me, Janine, what do I do if I hadn't done this other portion? That's okay. What we would do is this. We would go in and we would change those levels, but we actually have the negative. And we're not going to be actually editing the negative. We're going to be editing a layer on top of that particular negative. And one of the reasons that we want to do that is because we don't want to make any direct changes here. Okay, we're making a few changes, but for the most part, we're keeping that negative intact so we can always go back and make changes. So now we're asked to make an adjustment layer. You guys may remember that little circle with that line in between. That is the new adjustment layer. So I'm going to click there and then it'll allow me to go to levels. And you see the word levels right there. There we go. Sometimes it takes a little while on my machine, but that's all right. So I have my levels right here. So there's a small bump on the far right side of the histogram. This is allowing us to change the light levels here, representing the current white point, but the bulk of the data ends further to the left, okay? You wanna set the white point closer to where most of the data ends. So you see how this is leveled? So what we want, let me let someone in here. So we wanna drag this white square right there to the left where the histogram indicates the highlight tones start to appear. So we're going to move that to a value of 242. Okay, you can also type it in too. Okay, give me one sec, because I realize we are it's 12:01. Let me do one thing real quick, and then let's just go to break and come back at 1. All right, let me do one more thing, just so that we can have this settled. So we have that white, drug it over to where the histogram indicates that significant highlight tones appear to 242. This middle right here, we want to move that slightly to the right. So it's at 0.95. And I might just go in and say 0.95. Okay. And then let's see. Yeah, we can just hit enter, boom. And I'm going to minimize this. And I'm going to go ahead and file and save. I'm going to save this so that when I come back, it's here. Okay, people, go ahead, save, and then go to lunch. All right. I'll see you back here at 1. Let's see, I'm gonna stop share. Let me stop recording here for a moment. Pause recording. Oh. All right, people, it's a little bit after 1 o'clock. So we're going back to our photo P. Now, this is an interesting kind of project because with this particular project, let's see if I can get away from this Photoshop. Not Photoshop. Okay, so this is the assignment we were working on. We really haven't done much to this particular picture. So this was the raw file that we were talking about earlier. And we took the raw file, which is essentially our background picture there. And we kind of brightened up the negative. Not much, but we brightened it up. We're going to do some other things to it. So, excuse me. Before we went to break, we, let's see, we went to levels. Hold on. Let me just make sure we're at the right spot. So we created our little levels, right? And we, so this one here, we don't need this one with the T, that's the text. So I'm just gonna get rid of the text there. So with that levels, we were able to adjust the histogram so that we could change the highlighted tones there. Okay, now we're gonna go to page 8 in our text. That's if you're following with me. And this is where we're talking about editing the saturation. So now what we want to do, we want to add a hue saturation adjustment layer at the top of the layer stack. So how are we going to do that? Well, again, remember the adjustment layer is right there where it says new adjustment layer. Looks like that circle that's cut in half. So what we're going to do is click there. Once we click on that circle that's cut in half, we got a menu of options that we need. So then I'm going to look for the words hue saturation. Once there, I'm going to click on there we go. So now I have hue saturation. So you got 2 little boxes there, right? So it should say hue saturation at 1. Now, with this hue saturation, we're going to boost the master to 15 plus. Then I'm going to show you, we're also going to boost the red and yellow. So we're going to do that in a couple of stages here. So first with our, excuse me, I see a question. Let's see the question. Let me stop sharing for just a moment. Okay, good here. If you have any questions, go ahead and let me know. Okay, so now we're here where we are going to change the saturation. Remember when we were talking about saturation, we're talking about making the color rich, right? So some things need to be boosted in terms of their richness. So with this hue saturation, we're going to start with that master. So set a saturation for master to 15 plus. So we are here, the range is master. And then you see where it says hue. we're gonna, and then you see saturation. We're gonna type in 15 under, well, not under, but next to that. So our saturation is going to be 15. Then the result is the skin kind of brightened, but we got a lot of yellow. We don't need that kind of yellow. And that's the problem with some of the editing that you'll see on social media, because that's where you get the most amount of editing. You'll see someone's skin and they're very tan, but they're like orangey or yellowish in color. And you're like, you did not get that tan. That's not a real tan that humans get. You're like, you were playing with saturation and you didn't balance any of that. And then also there are the creams and stuff that you can purchase. And depending on how much yellow they have in that, the cream that you're putting on for tanning, it can make you look strange too. But if someone takes a picture of you, at least you can look good in the pictures. I have a friend, she is a bodybuilder, and she's a little bit lighter in complexion than I am, and they still put tanning lotion and everything on her. And some are good, some are not, some are better, but they do like a spray tan. Anyway, with that spray tan or whatever, depending on the lights and the spray tan, sometimes she looks amazing, like a superhero come to life, and sometimes she looks a little strange. So it's all about the color. So we've done a saturation, the master saturation for 15. Now we need to change the red and yellow so that she looks a little better and not as yellow. So let's do that now. So we're going to set the saturation for red. And I'm going to click that drop down, and you see the word red. I'm going to click right there. So now I'm going to go and set that saturation to -5. Now I can type this in, or I can use this little slider, but I'm going to just go ahead for the sake of time. Whoops, let's try that again. Okay, people, are you with me? If you, again, if you need to do something again, just like always, just go ahead and let me know. All right, let's see. Good. So Nee and Balgama are with me. Good. Thank you, ladies. All right. So saturation -5 for the red. Then we're going to move to yellow. Okay. And we're also going to do -5 for the saturation there as well, right? So you see how it's changed a little bit? Okay, Ari. All right. So set saturation for red and yellow to -5. Now, I'm going to just reduce the size of this panel. There we go. And I'm going to go to File and Save as PSD. And let's just leave it. And I'll do raw photo too. So we're saving it as our PSD file, our Photoshop file. Okay, good, Bat Batar. All right, Bat Batar, we're just going on to changing the saturation. So we're on page 8 of your assignment. Now, this is where you make the changes that you want to see. For the most part, you're an artist. When you're editing, you're creating art. People don't look like this, right? So you've made some changes. They're either brighter, lighter, darker, whatever. And I mean, they look like this, but what I'm saying is the moment you get a hold of the picture, you are making those changes so that that person looks like you want them to look. If you want them to look like anime come to life, you can do that. If you want to make them look natural and realistic, which should be the goal for most people, unless there's something special that you're doing that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start using something called the healing brush tool. This is to get rid of blemishes. Now, I am going to tell you, I'm generally conservative about getting rid of blemishes on people. One of the reasons I'm kind of conservative, because I kind of think that blemishes make you unique, and sometimes they make people look more attractive in my eyes. I realize everybody does not believe that, but that's okay. So I'm zooming in a little bit. Now I'm going to also do something else. And I'm on page 9. And we're going to use the healing brush here in a second to remove some blemishes. But in the first thing we're going to do, we're going to go in the layers panel. We're going to select that 128B start layer. So I'm just going to click there. And then we're going to choose a duplicate layer from the layers panel. And this is, in a second, we're going to start making the changes that we're talking about. So in order for me to get a duplicate layer, I'm either going to right click on that layer and click on duplicate layer, or I can go over here and click on layer, right? Even there, I get my duplicate layer. Now the assignment asks us to change the name of that background layer to something called corrections. Now, depend on who you are, where you've learned. You're not necessarily going to call it corrections. You might call it something else, depending on, who you work for. And if there's more than one person editing the same project, you might have like instructions. Oh, create a new layer and call it this, right? You do that, and then you make the changes that are asked of you. So I have my second layer, which is now called corrections. So we're going to zoom in on the model's face. I've already done that. If I'm going too fast, you know what the rules are. Let me know I'm going too fast, or repeat something, or clarify to make it clearer. Okay, so we're zoomed in on this model's face. Now we're going to use something called the healing brush tool. Now she has a few blemishes that we're going to get rid of. And then also she has like, start the beginning of some lines here so we can have some fun with that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the spot healing brush tool, and it looks like a little bandage. So spot healing brush tool, I select on that, and it's right above the brush tool, but spot healing brush tool is what we need. And now we're up at the options bar, and we're asked to change the size. Essentially, this is a little brush. This little brush, we're going to change it. So we're going to change that size to 35 pixels. This is just for the assignment. Again, depending on what you're doing, you might say, I need a little bit smaller of a brush, or you need a larger brush. Okay, so I had to let somebody in. Okay, give me a sec. All right, so now I have like this little circle, right? So with the spot healing brush tool, we need to get rid of this nose ring she has, right? So let's see. I'm going to make this a little bit larger. Yeah, there you go. You see that little nose ring there? And I'm just going to put my cursor on that nose ring, and I'm going to click. Okay, give it a second. You see how that nose ring is gone? And it's great for things like that. Hey, Balgama, that no problem. Uh, depending on the day, I might have to change browsers too. Like I notice that Firefox doesn't do the best for me, but Google Chrome, it depends on what you're doing. So if you change browsers and it works, and that's all the difference. Okay, now let me say this. You see these fine lines around her mouth? The lines that go from the corner of the nose to the corner of the mouth, those are called nasal labial folds. Right? Then from here to the chin, those we call marionette lines, like a little puppet, like a marionette puppet. Most people don't want those. I'm at the point now where I'm in between. I'm generally conservative, but I would say this would be the best time to actually talk to the client about it. It was like, how do you feel about these lines? Do you want to get rid of all of them like you're a newborn baby? Or do you want to have a little bit of it just to show that you're an adult and you've lived a life and you have some experiences? It depends, right? So we're going to paint over the fine lines around the eyes and the mouth. And she got a little bit of something around the eyes. Well, let's catch up with the eyes in a minute. First thing I'm going to do is get rid of the marionette lines. And you see how it's much smoother. I'm gonna go in a little bit. That to me works a lot better. And in fact, you can see how she looks a little younger. The nasal labial folds that go from the corner of the nose to the corner of the mouth, we all have them. And it makes sense for us to have them. But that marionette line from the corner of the mouth all the way to the chin, that to me, I have a problem with. And I generally get rid of those. I usually get rid of those first. Okay, so let's continue and give yourself a moment. Now, even if I want to, I'm just gonna, let's say she says, get rid of it. I don't like it. Notice the difference there. And what I would also suggest is changing your view, right? See how people look. Is that too much? Is it not enough? I need to find a picture that I saw, maybe like a week or two ago. Hilarious. This woman was in a picture and she did it herself, but her face was so smooth. The only thing there were her eyes, her nose, and lips. Everything else was so smooth and blended out. She was standing next to other people and she looked ridiculous. I can't even describe how ridiculous she looked. She had no features, right? Just the eyes, nose, and mouth. She looked like a cartoon. The moment I saw it, I almost died laughing. It was just the funniest thing I had ever seen. And she thought she looked good. Women are not the only people who do this. We all can be a little vain. But I'll see if I can find that picture. That picture is hilarious. So, okay. So we're painting over the fine lines around the eyes and mouth. You can get rid of the blemishes on the face. Depending on where you are in the world, some people, they don't mind blemishes. Like, I want to say it's Sweden, and you can correct me if I am wrong, but they kind of like some of the little blemishes, maybe like the little freckles or whatever. and they think it's attractive. Some countries, they see that as no, get rid of that. It's not attractive. I would say if you have a client and you're editing her photo, talk to her first, because you need to know what she wants to get rid of and not get rid of at the same time. And some things you just want to lighten up. Like this mole, I would not get rid of. This big mole that's right next to her hair. Those are too distinctive and they're kind of large. So if she told me get rid of them, I'd get rid of them. See ya. If she said to me, no, those are distinctive, those are part of my face, that differentiates me from my sister or my cousin or something like that, then I'd say, okay, I'll leave those in. You know, my mother has a mole right underneath her eye. So little, it's very tiny, but you can see it. And when I would, like if she was going out somewhere and I wanted to do a little makeup for her, she would say, don't get rid of that. That makes me distinctive. So, you know, it just depends. Now, my grandmother, she would have made us get rid of it. If so anyway, you go in and you make your changes. You notice how we're making changes there. Some things people want, some people don't. Okay, right? So, and also notice something that I'm doing that you might not do. You might make her get rid of every blemish she ever had, including the ones on her chest, right? Again, you want to ask, do you want to get rid of these on your chest? And you let people know that's what you're going to do. Like even here, that little line there. You'd be surprised how vain people are. Well, you know. Okay. Like the moles don't necessarily bother me on other people. If I have moles on myself, I want them gone today. But I mean, if they're tiny, I'm like, okay, fine, no problem. They're huge, get rid of that. And even as I'm saying it, I'm getting rid of a lot of these. All right. Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna zoom to fit the area. Okay. So you see how she looks there. It's not too bad. All right. Now what we're gonna do. Balgama, are you still here? Can you hear me? Okay. So I'm going to ask a question. Let's see. I'm going to scroll down. Let me zoom. Actually, let me zoom in just a little bit. Okay. All right. So we have some of this work done. We need to do some more. So right now we're going to use something called the sponge tool and the dodge tool, right? And these tools, these are going to help us just make her eyes pop a little bit more and her lips pop a little bit more. Really interesting tools to use. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to, let's see, where is her sponge tool? Hold on. That's not it. Hold on. Let me see. There we are. Ha. Okay. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select the sponge tool. Now I'm still on this correction layer. And as I'm looking at her, I wish I had left a couple of more of the molds because I think she looks just too different. All right, so select the sponge tool hidden under the dodge tool. Okay, in the options bar, make sure saturate is selected and then select the following settings. So we have the sponge, we have the saturate, and we have the flow. So we're going to change the size to about 70. And this is what the book and the SME have decided that this is the size you should do. Generally, I think it's up to you what size you want to use. Now, this is going to adjust the hardness or softness of our brush. Whoops, there we go, 0. So we're at 70 pixels, and we're going to take this sponge tool over the irises in the eyes to increase the saturation. I kind of feel like less is more. So if you take the iris of the eyes, sometimes if you do too much, the person looks like an alien or something. You know, it's like, yeah, okay. It's like, why are your, like if someone has hazel eyes, you're like, why are your eyes gold in that picture? Oh, it's just how the light caught my eyes. You're right. Okay. So anyway, I'm going to just and basically we're just clicking on the iris part of the eye, right? So that's all we're doing. Not the pupil, which is the dark part, but we're using the color on the iris. So I just wanted to make sure that we're on the same page. I'm checking for a second to make sure. Okay. I had to let someone in real quick. Hey, Balgama, that's fine. No problem with that browser. Just as long as you come back in. Okay. So let's, okay. So I'm going back to Photopea. All right. So we have this woman and she's looking okay. Now let's try to use this sponge tool on her eyes. So I'm going to go to view. I'm going to zoom in and I'm going to tell you, I generally wouldn't bother really with the eye color, but we're going to do it for this assignment. Okay, so we have the sponge tool. We have changed the hardness and also the size of our brush. We've made sure that it's saturated. So we have all of this good stuff going for us. So now I'm going to just see, to me, this is a little bit big. You see how big that was? Come on. Let's see, I might just zoom in some more. I'll show you what it does though. I don't know why they asked for 70 pixels, but that's what we got, okay? And I'm gonna hit the H on my keyboard. And I'm going to go back to that sponge tool. Let's click, okay. Yeah, I'm on sponge, okay. You always know you're on sponge or whatever tool you are because it'll be right there at the corner. Now you see right there, I'm gonna, that's what they asked you to do. All right, so that, I would have personally, I would have used a much smaller tool, smaller brush. So I will give credit where credit is due. Our eyes do seem to pop But you want to be careful with that because, like I said, you can make someone look like their eyes are glowing and they look like a little alien. And anyway, I think it's hilarious personally. Let's see, drag a sponge tool. Okay, so we've done that. Now, give me a second. Oops. Yeah. Let's leave it there. Okay. So we can also lower the flow value for a tool to give us more control. By lowering the rate at which a tool paints, you have more time to gradually build up an effect by whatever. Okay, so let's go to the flow tool. We're going to move to the lips. So change the flow to 10% on the lips, then brush the sponge tool over the lips to saturate them. So I'm going to go ahead and change the view again. So I'm going to go zoom in. Okay. So right there. Now, I would like to make the corners just a little darker. And I want just a little lightness around the center. Okay. So I'm actually pretty happy with that. So now we're moving on to page 11. It says you can use the sponge tool to desaturate color too. You'll reduce the red in the corner of the eye. So they're asking us to change this size to 45. How are you guys doing? You still with me?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Good. All right. So now we're going to go to mode and desaturate. All right. Let's see. Good. All right. So now I'm going to mode and desaturate. And we're going to go and we're going to clean up her eyes a little bit. Right. I'm going to share just a couple of things with you. If you're taking pictures, and you're like, oh, I want to make sure my eyes are really clear. Obviously, you can come right here to Photopea and take care of that. Otherwise, if you want, you can take a little bit of clear mascara and a mascara. It's not a mascara wand. It's why have I forgot the name of that tool? All right. It's basically eyelash curler. In fact, that's what it's called. You can take an eyelash curler and just curl your lashes, right? You don't want to do it too dry, but you want to curl your lashes, whatever. And when you open up the eye a little bit more, it makes it look whiter. But we have the benefit of Photopea, so we don't have to play with that. It's just depending on what you want to do. Because if someone else is taking pictures of you, you may or may not have control over that. So just keep that in mind. So mostly she's going to have the redness toward the corner of the eye. So we're going to brush over the corner of the eye to reduce that redness. And you see we got a little bit. Much better. Okay. And again, you know what? That picture that I saw, haunting, hilarious though. Let me just slowly move around there. I would possibly take more time, but notice we got a little bit of change there. It looks a little bit better. And I would say, go back and forth. I'm gonna go fit the area, see how it looks. Our eyes may be a little bit too blue. I don't know. Maybe. We'll see. Okay, so let me go back to go to view, and actually let me just, and we're going to use the hand, just move that over. Again, preferences. You see, I'm wearing glasses, so I just try to make things comfortable for me. So now we have kind of updated her eyes. The eyes look better. I think because I worked in the film industry and I'm so used to things being artificial, I kind of like things to look a little bit more natural. So I'm generally a little less, uh, I generally try to steer toward being more natural versus, looking too artificial. I just think people look better that way. It's just me. Okay, now we're going to use something called the dodge tool. It's in the same area with the brush tool. So I'm going to click on that dodge tool. So we're going to select this dodge tool hidden underneath that sponge tool, by the way. And in the options bar, we're going to change the brush to 65 pixels. Now, these are the suggested sizes that the assignment calls for. If you're working on this, you're like, this brush is too big for me. I can't work with that. Make the brush smaller. Or you like, this is too small. I can't see what I'm doing. Make it bigger, right? Don't, let some of these sizes, especially in terms of the brush size, be a hindrance for you. Okay, so now we are selecting this dodge tool hidden under the sponge tool. In the options bar, change the brush to 60 and the exposure to 10. Okay, so when we're talking about exposure, this is how much light is hitting the subject, right? So basically, if it's light or dark. There we go. In fact, I'm adjusting a light here. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to take, so now we have the exposure at 10 and the range, we're going to use highlights as the range. All right, so we're going to brush the dodge tool over the eyes, the whites, and the irises to brighten them. I don't necessarily think the irises need to be brightened anymore, but we're going to do a little bit of it. So we got this as highlights. We got the exposure at 10. So this shouldn't be too bright. Okay. And with the dodge tool still select, let's go ahead and do this. Sorry. Okay, that's not too bad. All right. I'm not sure I want to do too much more with the irises, but let's go. Okay. Because if it's too white, where it's like a white that's not known in nature, people look strange. It looks like, is this something that is, inhuman? Not meaning not human at all. All right. So now we have used the dodge tool for this effect. And let's zoom out again. Okay, let's go to fit the area. So we're seeing what everything looks like. It's not too bad. Okay, and these are just tools for this assignment. You'd make different decisions as you're doing everything else. So now with the dodge tool still selected, we're going to select shadows under range. So now we have shadows. Okay, and in that options bar, we're still going to keep it at an exposure of 10%. So now we're going to use that dodge tool to lighten the shadow area above the eyes and areas around the irises to bring out color. I know we keep playing with these eyes and irises, right? But it's going to work for us. So I'm going to zoom in. All right. So I'm gonna start right there and just lighten that area up just a little bit. Okay. And we're gonna do a little bit of the same here. All right. And basically you want a little bit of shadow above, below the brow bone and right in the crease. You want a little shadow because that helps bring out the eye and make it look larger if that's something that you're trying to do. Okay, so let's go to page 12. Now we're going to play with the skin tone. Let me zoom. Actually, let me go back to fit the area. And we're looking to see what the changes are that we're making. Okay, so we have the brow bone looking pretty okay. Let me just double check something here. All right. Now we're going to adjust the skin tone. There are a number of videos online that I think are very interesting, where they'll take one person and they'll take a person that has a darker skin tone like myself. They'll take a person with a lighter skin tone or olive or mid-range skin tone, and they will give it to photo editors around the world. And what generally happens is they'll take that one picture and give it to all the photo editors. And when they get it back, they look different. Sometimes they'll look lighter in tone. Sometimes they're made tanner because to be more tan in a certain country might mean to be rich, whereas to be fairer in a country might be to be healthy or rich or whatever. And it just changes depending on what's popular in their country. So that's another reason when you work on projects, you want to figure out what is the best when for that person. When I was a makeup artist in the early 90s, I used to make everyone darker. I gave everyone a tan. I just figured, I don't know. I just figured everybody looked so good with a tan. And then as I got a little older and was still a makeup artist, I was like, you know what? Everybody doesn't need to be tanned. You know, some people look very good with their very fair skin down the line. So also things change, but depending on the country that you're from, some things are more attractive. When you get a chance, I would say look it up. It's kind of interesting. Now we're going to change this color range, right? So first thing we're going to do, let's see, it said in Photopea, you can select a color range that targets skin tones so that it's easier to adjust the levels of color tone of skin without affecting the entire image. The skin tone colors range select other areas of the image with similar colors, but if you're making slight adjustments, this is usually acceptable. Now, you see where I have range shadows? No, I don't want shadows. Okay, I'm either going to go with midtones or highlights. Now, they didn't tell you that to do that, but I think it would be a little bit better if we do that. Let's say midtones. I can also do highlights as well. So basically select color range. Come on. It's going to take a moment, right? And you see sampled colors. Let me go to, do I want highlights? Let me go to fuzziness. We're going to change that to 90. So what's going to happen is when we get the skin, we're going to take a sample of her skin. And so we're going to be able to use that sample of her skin to change the adjustment of the curves icon and adjustment so that we can just improve her skin. Because at some point while you're doing this, you can look up and the person looks just alien. And I mean alien like extraterrestrial, like, you know, ET just came down from the skies, right? So let me do midtones. Okay, so we kind of wanted to look a little bit like this, right? So we're gonna leave the fuzziness at 90%. And then we're going to sample her skin tone. So I'm gonna sample right here around the neck. So that's going to be the sample I'm going to take. And let's see if I can move this up a little bit. All right. So fuzziness, 90. Now we can either replace the color or add the color. Let's see, where's my replace color? Nope, I was right before it. Let's see. No. We're gonna go back to midtones. Okay, so we're gonna leave it there. Midtones 90, and then we're gonna tell, we've sampled by just clicking over here on her neck here. Then I'm going to tell it okay in just a moment. All right, and usually there's something that says mode or replace. Now I don't have mode or replace here. Okay. All right, so we're going to click on okay. No, that's not even right. Which is funny because there is, I want to show you one other thing. Give me a sec. Because what we want to do is we want to, you know, get that skin tone range, but there is a button that's on that window that always pops up. That is not popping up. So let's take a second here. All right, now let's go to.
Ms. Eldridge, can I chime in for a second before I step out?
Oh, would you please?
Of course. Guys, I used to work in this field as well as Ms. Eldridge did. As a photographer, a retoucher, and an art director in primarily in publishing, but also in advertising. Does anybody see any challenges sort of from a society standpoint or an ethical standpoint with some of the ability that you're learning right here in terms of people's skin tone? Any thoughts on that? I'd love to hear your thoughts. And I'll give you an example of a couple real life things. But from you first. Anything tricky, anything that is kind of grabbing you and saying, maybe this is a problem, or maybe this is something I should pay attention to if I were in this field?
Well, let's not see this as, well,
You're
what I
saying
was gonna suggest is, you know, we're in a class, answer the question, and don't worry about what people think about as good or bad or whatever. Just be, you can be open and honest. There's no
yeah, just
wrong
want your
question.
thought. Good point.
Sorry.
Thank you. No, it's a great point. Any responses to what you're learning or thoughts or points of interest or question that come to your mind at this point? Anybody? I'm
Um,
looking. One of my great answers here. I know I've heard Cora could hear. Is it Manish? One of my great contributors at this point. I apologize, I'm eating lunch, but sneaking in work while I do it. Well, I'll give you a couple
Bad
examples.
Batar, can you hear me?
I sure can. Yeah. Anybody?
Yes,
Wave?
I'm putting people on the spot.
I love that. Who's on the spot right now, Ms. Elders?
Well, I called Bad Batar, but I don't see or hear anything. Anibal, can you talk to us? What do you think? What you're from
Hello, I'm
Brazil,
here.
right? Okay. Oh, Bad Batar is here too. Okay. Well, either one, Bad Batar, what do you think to Joe's question?
I'm here.
Okay. Anibal, you can answer the question too.
Yeah, what was the question again? I'm sorry.
Joe,
What-
can you?
Sure. What catches your attention in terms of you're a photo retoucher using some of the techniques and skills you're learning here? What other things are you paying attention to in terms of people's perception of your work or perception of photographs in general? Anything interesting or questionable?
Well, first, I don't work in this field, but
Sure.
I think this course has allowed us to understand a little bit more. For example, from my perspective, that I didn't have any background before. It's kind of for me sometimes, let's say, funny the way that you can manage pictures and you can make laugh your friends with all the modifications that we are able to do with the pictures in this course. So I'm very happy for that. I'm thankful to Ms. Eldridge because she has allowed us to understand a little bit more about this.
Oh yeah, no,
especially for me.
you're getting. I thank you for saying that. You're getting some deep learning here. I mean, you're getting some.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
If you were to step into a position where this was part of your responsibility, I think you're going to have some really in-depth and advanced understanding of how to do it and some of the implications of it. I think those are great points.
Yeah, and also the good thing is that we start from like the very beginning, like 101, and we have been developing skills like every day after the other. So that's a good thing because at the beginning I was kind of afraid, like, oh my God, I won't be able to do anything because I don't know how to manage Photoshop. But now I think that we're getting skills step by step and we're getting better. So.
Oh, good insights, really good insights. Has anybody here ever see a movie where a clown or a doll or something inanimate is kind of scary and kind of sets you on edge? Any horror movie fans?
Yeah, of course. So many.
Well, it's interesting because I've heard Ms. Eldridge say very cogently a number of times, this doesn't look real. You know, this is becoming something that's veering on alien or inhuman. I've heard that. I'll recall hearing that a number of times. There's actually a principle in psychology related to that is part of why dolls scare us, part of why sometimes unreal but close to real faces actually cause anxiety. There's even a psychological term for it. If you play video games, you might have heard the term, but it's the term is uncanny valley.
Oh,
that means it's so close to real, but we know it's not, and it's a little off, like Ms. Eldridge is saying, that it's frightening. I mean, it causes us to become a little bit anxious. So it's something, you know, as you're learning about not going too far with an edit, particularly in terms of, you know, the whiteness of eyes or teeth or skin tone. Skin tone's a tricky one. And as Ms. Eldridge just said, you give it to different editors. I'll talk about that in a minute. You'll see different skin tones. So I mean, you're paying attention to your audience in a very real way, and you know, making improvements that are not starting to detract in ways that you might not have realized, you know, to make an actual frightening photo. Does anybody remember a football player become actor, become something else named O.J. Simpson? Does anybody remember O.J. Simpson? I know Ms. Eldridge does, but the rest of you.
The name is familiar to me, but I don't know.
Sure. Well, he was a
Yeah, the one who murdered his wife.
possibly.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
He was actually acquitted of that. So,
what
you
they
know,
say allegedly.
right.
Okay. And Kardashian.
Yes, Robert Kardashian was his lawyer.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
One of his lawyers. He had about 40 lawyers. But one of the things that came up during that time was he was obviously everywhere in the media. There was one particular issue of Time magazine where his face pretty much was the entire front cover. And Time magazine took some flack, if I recall. If I get this wrong, myself, you fill in, but because the photo retouching had his skin tone as being very dark. And the same photo had appeared in other publications in which it was probably more natural and probably more close to, if you saw him up close, his real skin tone. What problems do you think could arise in that situation if one photo editor, you know, portrays his skin tone as more dark than another in society and wherever you're from or in the United States? Oh, thank you. There it is. And you can see it right. You can see it right there that it's even
Hold on,
compared to
I
other
don't know.
covers.
Okay, there it is. Okay, let's
Mhm.
see if I can.
This was
right
a
there.
fairly important issue. I think they re-released some of these photos even. But it was darker than other versions of the photo. What society or ethical issues could come up in terms of the portrayal of somebody's appearance in your culture, where you're from, or in United States culture? And he doesn't have in general, he does not have a particularly dark skin tone. But in that Time magazine cover, you could tell that it was edited a certain way. And my guess is without any sort of intent. I don't know. I wasn't editing that photo. Skin tone is rough. What could come up?
Interesting. His actual mugshot looks a lot lighter.
Yeah, which is the same photo, right? I think same base photo.
I think so.
I believe so.
Yeah.
What do you think people were upset about? People were very upset about that cover. Some were. What might have been their concern? I'm sure, Ms. Eldridge, you recall this whole big kerfuffle over
I
this.
do remember a lot of it. It's interesting. Again, depending on where you are in the world, what country you're from, there's always going to be a group of people who might have more difficulty accessing government services and general respect than other people. I'm trying to be very tactful here. But
You're doing well.
in
Much better than I
America,
would be.
okay, but here in America, at different times, people with darker skin tones were perceived to be criminal or, bad or something like that. And when you would have a person maybe of one skin tone and you would make them lighter or darker, sometimes that could prejudice people to think that that person was already, guilty of something when they might not have been guilty. We also do the reverse. I'm sure Joe was about to talk about the reverse, where the celebrity that we like that might be Black, dark skinned or what have you, they'll lighten their skin tone. There's been a number of controversies about that, about lightening the skin tone of actresses. Beyonce is an actress and singer that they like to lighten her skin tone on some magazines as well. And there will be a lot of controversy. There's also Kerry Washington had a magazine cover. Okay, in fact, we can see a range of pictures. I think she might be, in terms of looking at color, she might be a little bit lighter than myself. And okay, I'm trying to see, let me see, a Kerry Washington lightened cover maybe. okay, let's see, where is, I don't think that's it. Ah, here it is.
Sure.
Okay, let me bring this up.
Great example.
You know, Kerry Washington on yet another magazine cover photo that looks nothing like her. So this woman, we don't know who she is, but that is not the actress Kerry Washington. They went a little bit heavy-handed with the work. Now, Aref answered your question, Joe. He says, in summary, prejudice, society implied. Unfortunately, in order to sell marketing perspective, you have to get into that or follow that, even if it is not right. So yeah, you got it.
It's just a very cogent insight. And I'm just, you know, I'm listening to what you're learning, and Ms. Eldridge is doing a really specific, excellent job of questioning why and when you might make edits, and some of what you might be even sometimes unconsciously portraying in edits. You know, whether something is accurate, is real, is fair, is kind, is enlightened, you know, is the way we want to see ourselves in many ways as a people. And you know, is it who's making Annabelle and Aref, you're making great points. This is it is changing, Annabelle. I think that's a great point. You know, I'm also in my saga of having had too many careers. I'm also a musician, and I remember some old album covers of musicians whom I loved, who Nat King Cole and Johnny Mathis, older covers, Sam Cooke to some degree, where they would often release the album covers in a duotone, which is just really two posterized colors, specifically to make it difficult to identify the race of the person that was on the record. And you couldn't tell from the photo. If you find any of those old covers, you'll see they don't, you know, they're not, it's to the point of being inaccurate, I would say. So I think, you know, you have if you do, you know, you mentioned Annabelle, you mentioned, if I'm saying your name correctly, if you do, yeah, great example. If you do work in this business, that you have a responsibility to the people to whom you're portraying somebody, and to the person you're portraying. You know, are you being responsible with these incredible tools you're given, and that you're learning about right now? So there's a good conversation to be had about, oh, great examples, really great examples of, you know, should we make these changes? Are they the right things to be doing? Are we portraying people in a way that is just and kind and not playing into things in society that might harm people or might oppress people? So I need to step out, but you're getting a really great overview here of not just how to do certain things. It's a great photo you're working with too. But some of the deeper implications of the accuracy and what those things imply as well when you do this. And I've done a lot of photo retouch. And it's a constant question if you get into this business. What is my responsibility as an artist, you know, as a professional doing these things in terms of sort of larger ethical issues? You know, am I portraying the world in a way that is kind and just? So you really enjoy this conversation, guys, because you're getting a lot of great input here from Ms. Eldridge, and continue the conversation amongst yourselves. What do you believe? What are your values, and how do they play out in the work you wind up doing professionally? Because it's a constant question, or should be at least. So you should, and make sure to thank Ms. Eldridge when you get a moment, because you're getting really, really deep learning here. And I'm just so impressed, and I've been enjoying it a great deal. I didn't mean to take your time away from themselves, but I didn't step out, but I just want to help these students understand that they're really fortunate to get to be with you in this.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I've enjoyed working with the students too. Anibal, were you going to say something, or was that an applause figure?
Oh, thank you.
Just applause.
Oh, okay.
But there's deep issues. It's a big deal, and it's good to think about. It's good to think about your values and your role, in any profession, your responsibility to others and to yourself, and how that's rooted in your values, and how you play it out every day in everything you do, in sometimes ways that would be easy to not realize. I doubt that photo editor from Time Magazine had any idea of the backlash. And to some degree, fair backlash, but I doubt they thought through the implications. Maybe they did, and maybe they're just not a nice person. I don't know. I don't know the person at all, but definitely was a focal, controversial issue at that time. So thank you, Ms. Eldridge, for inviting me in. And
Oh, no
we'll speak
problem.
later, but this has really been enjoyable. So I appreciate it. And you guys enjoy this and think through it and struggle with it, fight with it, enjoy it in terms of what it means, and teach us. Like, I want to know if you're from another country, and we have some very strange cultural tendencies in the United States, and I'm sure but I'd love to learn how it's approached in other places too, and what messages are sent and what messages are received. So you've thought through this from a standpoint of being a good professional, being a responsible professional. Thank you, guys. You have a great day.
Thank you as well. Have a great
Appreciate
one.
it. Be well. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Thank you very much.
You too. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
everybody- Also, if you have connections to the Ukraine or that part of the world, know that you're in our hearts, and that we're thinking of you, and hope that your families and that you are okay. Everybody's safe, and both physically and emotionally and mentally. So be well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, people, let's finish up. Thank you so much for turning on your screens and also answering questions. That's our dean. Anytime he pops in the classroom, he is going to ask people questions. And it's good because it gets us to thinking about deeper meaning. This is what I am going to say to you in terms of photo editing. If you decide that you're going to work as a photo editor or even as a photographer, no matter where you end up in the world, if it's here, if it's Canada, if it's Mexico, if it is somewhere in the Middle East, if it's somewhere in Europe, wherever, Asia, Africa, wherever you are, you have to realize that you not only are you an artist, but you're trying to not be a starving artist, right? So you have to do what people ask you to do. So like that O.J. Simpson cover, I didn't like that. And it was making it prejudicial. However, I'm assuming that that photo editor did not come up with that idea on his own. I believe it was somebody at Time Magazine that told him to do that. And once he did it, he, what we call, hung him out to dry or threw him under the bus. Those terms mean that I have now turned on you so that you'll get in trouble and I won't be in trouble. So why is that important? And I'm going to get back here to the assignment as well. That's important because whenever you're working as an artist, you're working for someone. Generally, you're not working for yourself. So you have to make sure you don't upset your client. So that's kind of like a weird path to walk. If you ever see pictures of old rich people, like hold on, I'm going to show you something, and I just saw a documentary on this, so that's what made me think about. You guys might have heard about the Habsburgs or the Habsburgs. Let me see if I can pull it up. Ah, there we go. Again, I'm just bringing this up because it's important as an artist. There is something called the Habsburg jaw. these people had married too closely together. Like you can, like, there are people that have married their cousins. In fact, in America, we have a term called kissing cousins, which means it means that something is very close. Now, the scientists say that to a certain extent, it's okay, but if it's too close, like you have too many generations of cousins, you can come up with some issues. Why do I mention that? Because of this gentleman here. He did not look like this, okay? This person did look like this, but every time the artist painted him, they painted him differently. They wanted to paint him in a way that made him look like he was capable of leadership. They wanted the leader to look strong and to look healthy, where that poor man was sick a lot. He might have had problems with eating, I think they said. He caught a lot of diseases and colds. I mean, come on, he lived in like, gosh, I want to say like the 1700s or something. Right. So the artist always changed a little bit of what they did when they painted him, because they didn't want to get in trouble. Because sometimes if you painted something exactly how it looks, the people don't like it because they, in their heads, they look better, right? So I was just thinking about something else. When you work for people, you have to figure out what's ethical, and you have to figure out what's economical, meaning how are you going to be paid for this? Also, like royalty, politicians, all those kinds of people, let's say if they have a flaw, you either need to know that they're okay with their flaw, or you need to erase that flaw, because they may or may not know that they have that flaw, right? So this man with the Habsburg jaw, in fact, that's what they call it. His family just did it too often, and they did it to consolidate power and also to make sure that outsiders did not come in and take their money and power. So there's a whole kind of issues like that. There's even political issues regarding that. But anyway, if I would be terrified if someone looked like this and they were royalty and I had to paint them, because I know I'd have to paint them as attractively as possible so that I would not lose out on jobs, because one word from him or any of those handlers, he could lose work. All right, enough of that. If you guys have any ideas or whatever, you can share them, but I thought it was interesting. Let's get back to this. Now we're on page 12. I swear it's like just a little bit more to do. All right, so now I just went back a step here where we're adjusting the skin tone. So we're still on this corrections slide here. And I might just leave it here for a sec. Okay, so what they told us to do is go to select and color range. Okay, so with select and color range. Now there is, I want to show you something as long as we're talking. Oops, where is it? There we go. Nope, that's not it. Let me pull it up. I want to pull up project 3. There we go. So I'm on page 12. Okay, so with the adjusting the skin tones, so the last thing we were on, let's see, had us on shadows. Hold on. Yeah. Okay, so this assignment, I'm bringing it over here. And we're going to move to page 12. So they have us choose select and go to color range, which we've done. All right. Now, what has bothered me is I see the plus and the minus, but I don't see the replace button. I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. So you go to color and select. The task is to sample skin colors. The color range preview should show skin color selection as white. So if you see, we have the skin color as white. And you can see the bodice of the dress is a little dark, right? Okay, so you see where it says mode? It's funny because I was using another computer and my mode was different. Let's see, there we go. Let's do color range, select sampled colors. Okay. And we're gonna change the fuzziness to 87. Okay, and shouldn't be that dark. Yeah, select sample colors. Let me look. Okay. Okay, so the task, I'm gonna click over here. There we go. And then, okay. All right. And we're gonna try to cheat selection similar to this one. We say,
Excuse me?
okay, yes.
How did you did like lighter? Because I also have black.
Okay, so what I did is I clicked on sample colors. Let's do that again so that you can see what the heck I was doing. So the last thing was range, right? So I went to select color range. Let's see if I can put that. And you see where it says select sampled colors?
Yes.
That's where you need to be. And then you see where it says fuzziness?
Yes.
We did 87.
Mm-hmm.
Then I put my little circle there on her neck. You could use something else. And then I clicked on OK.
Yeah, perfect. Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah.
So then I had all those little lines, right? Well, I needed to deselect it. So I did Control D or I went to select and deselect. If you have those little white lines and it won't let you move on, go to Control key, hold down the Control key, and then the letter D on the keyboard. All right, let's finish up here. We're almost done. Okay, so now we got to do this curves icon in the adjustments layer. So what we're going to do is we need to use that new adjustment layer. Click. And we're going to go to the curves icon. Okay. Now they're going to ask us to, click the curves icon in the adjustments layer. This line, we're going to bring it down a little bit to change the color just a bit. So Photopea adds a curve adjustment layer above the corrections layer, and the selection becomes a layer mask for the adjustment layer you just created. Now you can remove the selection. Yeah, we did that. Okay, so Now we're going to go to this channel here, and we're going to adjust the red in her skin. So we're going to click on red there. So I haven't done anything else. I haven't even touched that line. I went to channel, and instead of RGB, I clicked on red. Once there, I'm going to click in the middle of this line, and this is going to allow me to change the red in her skin. But I'm not going to do like this, because then it's going to make her green, right? I just want to make a small adjustment, kind of like that. Okay. So it's just a little bit more than what it was before. Let me show you what I'm talking about. You see, we're making a very, very small adjustment, adjusting the red. Personally, I don't see it as being necessary, but we're doing it because all of the other things that we have done have allowed us to change her skin color. But sometimes if people are too red, you want to make these little adjustments so that they don't look as red, because maybe she went to the beach 2 days before a wedding and she still has a lot of red color from the sun. Maybe she almost burned. I don't know. When she takes her wedding photo, she might want to go through with the ceremony and look good during the ceremony, but in the pictures, she might not want to be as red. Again, you notice how we're on this kind of weird ledge because we know that there are biases or whatever. I'm thinking about what Joe was saying. I don't worry about it. I would say this: try to be as good a person as you can be, try to be ethical, and the rest will figure it itself out. That's just the truth of it. You know, try, like if somebody were to hire me now and say, oh, you know, this guy, he's a wanted for murder, make him as dark as possible. I'm like, yeah, I don't think so. Right? You know, or make him look as light as possible. We don't think he's guilty. Yeah, I don't think so. Because sometimes little things like that have a big impact. In fact, some people credit American movies for people having negative opinions of Black people because we exported those movies everywhere, and the Black person was always the murderer, the thief, the killer, or whatever. It even has effects on Black people, you know, where you have some people who think, oh, I should be a murderer, or I should be a drug addict or a drug dealer, you know. So you have to realize that every time you're watching a movie, you're being manipulated a little bit. So Joe was right. A little bit of pushback is good. All right, let me keep it going here. So we've chosen red from the color channel menu in the properties panel. Okay, so now, then we're told to click in the middle of the graph and pull down very slightly. We've done that. I might even just pull it down a little bit more, right? Okay, be careful not to pull the curve down too far. You can see the difference you've made by clicking the toggle layer visibility button, the eye icon in the properties panel or layers panel. So I think we're fine. Okay, then you can choose file and save. And notice I got a little curve right there. Okay. Now I'm going to minimize this because I want to be able to see. Come on. There we go. Now we're going to do some, we're going to save. So file, save as PSD. We're still doing good. And you only have to send me the finished file. Like I have raw photo 1, raw photo 2. You don't have to send me every one of those. Just send me the finished file. Okay, so now we're going to offer something called surface blur. That surface blur is important because it's going to help her skin look more realistic, right? And it's also going to help her give her a smooth appearance. So we're hovering between looking natural and not looking natural. Like we talked about that uncanny valley thing. That's a, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to laugh. Well, I guess I did mean to laugh, but I was just thinking about some of the videos that I've shown you guys where they'll show usually somebody on Instagram who looks terrible because they have overdone it with the filters and everything. And it's just hilarious now. I think less is more. All right. So we're on this. Let's go to the corrections layer. You're going to choose layer. And it's on the still here. We're going to do layer, corrections layer, and choose layer, duplicate layer. Okay. And this is just the other way to do it. You could have just gone over here and clicked right click, duplicate, and then that would have been the same thing as what I did. So anyway, now we're going to call this surface blur, and we're going to use surface and blur. Okay, so we've changed this layer to surface blur. Now we're going to use that surface blur filter. So now, oh, let's see what people are saying to me. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Okay, this is going to be online on the Moodle class page, probably in about an hour. Okay, and yeah. Okay, let's keep it going. All right, so this surface blur, right? We're gonna go to filter. Okay, yeah, filter and blur. So it's filter, see the word blur, and it should be at the bottom here. Yep, surface blur. So with the surface blur layer selected, choose filter, blur, and surface blur. Okay. Once you've done that, then you got this surface blur picture that pops up. In the surface blur dialog box, leave the radius at 5 pixels. So we're going to do 5 pixels. Let me let someone in. Now, after that 5 pixels, let's see, or more if you want to achieve a stronger effect. I think this is going to be fine. Because if you go too strong with this person, again, looks strange, alien, like I was saying before. And the threshold should be 10. So let me go to 10 here. Let's see if I can. I'm going to move this over just a little bit. Come on, let's move over. So this is actually not too bad. That's the preview of it. She looks just like a healthy person. Then I'm going to go over here and say, okay, but if we wanted to, we can see a little bit of the difference if we go higher. Okay. I want to go back to 5 pixels and leave it there. And then I'm going to say, okay. So she doesn't look too bad. Okay, she still looks like a human. It's not that uncanny valley thing we talked about. Now, we're told that the surface blur has left her looking a little glassy. You'll reduce its effect by reducing the opacity of the blur. Okay, so I didn't do that, but I'm going to go over here to opacity and we're going to change it to 40. There you go. Or if you had still left the surface filter up, you could have gone to filter. Hold on, I'm just going to show you. Filter, blur, surface, blur. We're waiting for it. So when you have your 5 and your 10 here, come on. Yeah, we'll be finished in at least 5 minutes. Okay. Because we're on page 15 now. Okay. So let me get rid of that. I'm going to say 10 here. Okay. So what they were telling us, we could change the opacity to 40. We've done it. Yeah. So yeah, so that's, we didn't even need to do that other part. But anyway, I did it. Then we go to surface blur and we change the opacity under 40%. She looks more natural. You can look at her and not think, oh, there's a lot of editing that went into that. Okay, so now we're gonna do a little bit with that eraser tool. So let me change the view here. I wanna make this bigger. All right, now we're gonna go to the select the eraser tool, and where's my eraser? There we go. So your eraser tool is gonna be right underneath that paintbrush. So we're gonna go to the options bar, which is right here at the top. We're gonna say opacity 90. Let's see, we're gonna keep our flow at 100%. We're gonna make sure it's smooth, about 0. So let's see. Oh, and we're gonna select a brush between 50 and 100 pixels. Let's do that. So the size of the brush. I'm gonna do 55. Come on, there we go. Things are a little slow today, but that's okay. So we got 55, between 55 and 100. Change your pixel size for your brush when it's necessary for you. You're doing this at your convenience. So 55, and the hardness should be 10%. Yeah. So let's go here. All right. And I just clicked on a blank space here, but now I'm going to go back over here. We're going to brush over the eyes, eyebrows, and the defining lines of the nose and the details in the dress. You're erasing part of the blurred layer to let the sharper layer below show through in these areas. So let's get this a little bit bigger. All right. So one thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna brush over the eyes, eyebrows, and defining lines of the nose. So and even noses are political. You notice that? Like if you take somebody's nose, like a nose like mine, for instance, you would, for the most part, probably thin it out. And that's okay. But depending on where you are, if you thin it out too much, it will take the person from looking like somebody who's African, who has African ancestry. I'm not African. I'm born here. My family has been here for so many generations and are mixed with different ethnicities of people. But some people like to thin out the nose. When I work for other people, I'll do it if they ask. I've even thinned out the nose on people who were different races that have thinner noses, because that has now become the style. So you have to be understanding of the style. Okay, so now I'm gonna go back in here. Let's do view. Zoom in a little bit more. I'm gonna reduce the size of my brush a little bit. Just to fix 50 pixels. And so now I'm going to and then I'm going to go to let me use my H for my hand tool. Let me move her over. Okay, and we're just going over this for the blur. Okay, let's go back to, give me a sec. Yeah. All right. Let's see. Okay, so brush over the eyes, eyebrows. Let's see. And the detail in the dress. For the most part, you're only going to see a little bit of this. Let me use that H again, bring her over a little bit. I probably would have gone over some of this other detail in the dress, depending on where it was going to be shown. Okay. So then we're going to go view, fit the area. Okay. So you see a little bit of adjustment. Okay. She's looking a little bit different. And then let's see. Let's double check. Make sure we got everything going on with her. Okay. If you're happy with the result, you can delete background layer. It was for the backup. So you'll have 2 layers with the model, corrections and surface blur. So, oops, let's see, I don't want that. Okay. So you can see some of the changes we've made between this background and here with the corrections and with the surface blur. So you can see the differences there. Now we're told we can delete that background layer. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm just going to select the background layer, click on that trash can. And now we're going to go File, Save as PSD. Okay, so let's say, might as well say, I'm going to say Final. I'm going to say Save. Okay, then we're going to go to File, Export as JPEG. All right. And yeah, I'll leave it as raw final there too. Set quality to 80%. Okay. And click save. And it does say to submit both your PSD and JPEG files. Okay, so people, do we have any questions thus far? All right. Okay, so it is 2:40. That's your final step in project 3. So if you've been doing this with me, you have finished project 3. Let me stop sharing. Okay, and